Hey guys, Hades here. Let's do a random 5. This one is a little longer than the first 4, and people don't seem to like to watch my videos so much, so I'm going to divide, for a long period of time. So I'm going to divide this into 3 sections instead of 2 sections. I do not have a live version for this one. Okay, so we're starting off here. With a random picture. Stop trying, because no matter what you do, you'll never be as cool as this horse riding panda. This is the 5th installment in the random socials I do. I called these socials when I taught them to students in China. These are not really random, as I take student suggestions for the various topics. Well, sometimes I do. And if you have a suggestion for any lesson you'd like me to do, please leave it in the comments. Sometimes I just pick topics, but they're not long enough to talk about by themselves for a long time. What do you think we are going to talk about today? All right, let's look at some vocabulary. What is the difference between nocturnal and diurnal? What is the difference between poikilothermic and homeothermic? What is the difference between an herbivore, a carnivore, and an omnivore? A nocturnal creature is one that is awake at night and asleep during the day, such as an owl or a bat. Or me, but not really. Sort of. We'll talk about it. A diurnal creature is one that is generally awake during the day and asleep at night, like most creatures, including humans. Right? So even if you like to stay up all night, like I do sometimes, humans are still considered diurnal because mostly, right, most people will be awake during the day and sleep at night. Our eyes aren't good in the dark like some other creatures are. A homeothermic creature is able to maintain a body temperature other than its environment. Another word for this is endothermic. The most commonly known term for this is warm-blooded. Right? Warm-blooded creatures like mammals and birds, we might say, are homeothermic. A poikilothermic creature cannot maintain its own temperature and has to rely on its environment. We could call these creatures endothermic. The most common word for this is cold-blooded. Now, this is kind of complicated. We're just going to keep it simple. There's a couple types of cold-blooded creatures, but we're going to keep it simple. So basically, warm-blooded creatures, they can maintain their own body temperature, but cold-blooded creatures like reptiles, right? They can't maintain their own body temperature, and they need to rely more on the environment to help them with their body temperature. A carnivore is an animal that eats only meat. This is derived from the Latin carnis, meaning flesh, and vorare, to devour. Cats are carnivorous. However, dogs are not. What are dogs? If they're not carnivorous, what are dogs? Dogs are omnivorous. Omnivores eat both plants and animals. Most humans are omnivores. Now, you might be saying, well, my cat eats rice sometimes. Cats are still classified as carnivores. They're in the wild, they'll mostly strictly just eat meat, where a dog can eat other stuff. A dog can eat berries and some vegetation, and cats will not eat them. Yeah, they help with digestion sometimes, but cats are still considered carnivores, whereas dogs are considered more omnivores. And an herbivore is an animal that eats only plants. Right? Those are herbivores. So carnivores meat, herbivores plants, omnivores both meat and plants. Okay, so let's use the words we just learned to describe an animal based on its internal body temperature, its sleeping habits, and its diet. Yeah? So how can we classify a snake, a cockroach, a bear, and a cow? Okay, a snake is cold-blooded, poikilothermic. It's diurnal, it's out during the day, and it's a carnivore. It eats meat. A cockroach is also cold-blooded, poikilothermic. It's nocturnal, they come out at night, and it's also a carnivore, even though, yeah, cockroaches sometimes might eat stuff that's not meat, but traditionally in the wild, they would only eat meat. They're more scavengers too. They're not predators. They would eat stuff they find it's already dead. A bear is homeothermic, it's diurnal, and it's an omnivore. And a cow, homeothermic, diurnal, but it's an herbivore. Bears like to eat anything they can find, really. Cows typically just mostly eat grass or other types of vegetation. Random image. I thought that was a little funny. Okay, today we're doing, instead of grammar, we're doing literature. Yeah, it's hard to really. This stuff kind of might be more vocabulary, let's say, than grammar, but it's narration. Really, we're going to be talking about. I did a live class on this, on part of this, on the point of view. So part of this I covered in a live class already that got a decent amount of views. But let's go through this. What does narration mean? What is a narrative point of view? What is narrative voice? What is narrative time? And a hint here. These are the who, how, and when of storytelling. We'll get into that in more detail in a bit. Narration is the telling of the story. In news and academic papers, this is usually standard. In creative writing or literature, all of these can vary. The narrator in a song or poem is the speaker and should not be confused with the writer. Point of view is who tells the story. What is first person? What is second person? What is third person subjective? What is third person objective? And what is third person omniscient? In first person point of view, the story is being told by a character in the story and can be either subjective or objective. The narrator can be the protagonist, which is the main character, or maybe just a minor character witnessing events, right? The pronouns we usually use for this are I and we. Second person point of view is kind of rare, right? In second person, the narrator is talking to a particular person, often himself or herself, but not always, right? The pronouns used are you. Sometimes the person that is referring to himself or herself feels like his or her life is out of control, and that's why they're talking to themselves. But yeah, it's not often used, right? It's a story. You wake up, right? You get out of bed. You go brush your teeth. It's a strange way to tell a story. Not a lot of novels told this way, but you'll see some short stories told in second person. We have several different kinds of third person. Let's look first at third person subjective. In the third person subjective point of view, the writer can get inside the head of one or more characters to give them thoughts, feelings, and opinions that are not acted out or spoken. Sometimes it might just be one character. Sometimes they'll shift point of view to another character. But in subjective, it's not all characters. The writer picks one or more characters, but it's not going to be everyone. Pronouns used for this are he, she, it, and they. In this point of view, we cannot see inside all characters. We don't know what everyone's doing. Just certain people. We're subjected to what they are thinking or feeling, but not everyone. Often it will only be one person. In third person objective point of view, we don't know anyone's thoughts or feelings. Only the action is reported and we can't get inside people's minds. Most films and television use this. It's also used for news reports and anything academic, right? It's very objective. When a writer's using objective, third person objective, you don't know what anyone is thinking or feeling. You can only watch what they're doing, right? See what they're doing. You can see their actions, you can hear what they say, but they're not going to tell you what the person is thinking. And in third person omniscient point of view, the narrator knows all and can get inside everyone's head, and by extension, so can the reader. In this point of view, the narrator is godlike and knows everything about everyone in the story. So yeah, in omniscient is like the writer is almost, or the narrator is almost God. He can tell you, or she can tell you what's going on in anyone's head, in anyone's mind, right? Knows what everyone's thinking, knows what everyone's feeling. There's not a lot of stories like this, omniscient, right? Usually they'll just concentrate on one or a few characters. But omniscient, this person knows everything. Narrative voice describes how a story is being told. What is character voice? What is stream of consciousness? What is unreliable voice or unreliable narrator? And what is epistolary voice? Character voice can occur with first and third person voice, or third person point of view, right? It's when one of the characters in the story is telling the story. The character can be a minor character or a major character. We call that character voice when one of the characters in the story is telling the story. For example, with The Great Gatsby, it might be a minor character, right? But often it'll be a major character, maybe in third person or maybe first person. Stream of consciousness voice is an attempt to show how a real person thinks. This is usually done in first person. In this type of narration voice, there are often random, incomplete, and irrelevant thoughts happening during the story. I'm not a big fan of stream of consciousness. I don't like it. I find it annoying. If I play around with it, it's just a little. Right. For example, the writer is trying to show you what's going on in this person's mind. And in everyone's mind, we're thinking about different things, right? I'd say, okay, I need to go to the store to get bread. I like bread. I also like pizza. I'm also a little bit tired. Maybe I shouldn't go to the store. Maybe I should just go to the store in the morning. I don't know. Oh, I am kind of tired, and I don't like the way the wall looks. Right? Sometimes it's just some random thoughts going through the character's mind, and the writer writes them. That stream of consciousness coming out. They'll tell a story, throwing a lot of other random things in there. In unreliable voice or unreliable narration, we cannot trust the narrator, right? The narrator is telling the story and he's lying, right? Maybe he's lying, or he's crazy, or childish, or ignorant, or unknowledgeable, or very biased, or lying, right? We call that unreliable narration or unreliable voice. That means the person, like Edgar Allan Poe's The Telltale Heart is a good example of that. This guy's crazy, right? And he thinks his roommate or whatever has got an evil eye. So he kills his roommate, right? Because he's crazy. And he hides the body, and when the police come, he can hear the heart beating. He can't really hear the heart beating. He's just a little crazy. He feels guilty that he killed the person. He hears the heart beating and he gives himself up. That's unreliable narrator. To have a good unreliable narrator, at least by the end of the story, the writer needs to reveal that the narrator is unreliable. In epistolary voice, the narration takes place in written correspondence. Traditionally, this voice often employed letters sent between characters, right? Or just from one character telling a story. However, today, a contemporary writer can use email, text, or social media, right, to tell a story that way. You can do it, right? So it's stuff that was been written down by the character, right? A classic example of this is Frankenstein, right? That was epistolary. The letter was told, I mean, the story was told through letters. Narrative time is basically the tense in which a story is told. Most stories are told in past tense about events that have already happened, they've already transpired. But there are still many stories that are told in present tense. So the story is being told as it happens, right? And there are very few stories told in future tense. Let's think of some examples, right? Okay, so past tense, Jack got out of bed and then he brushed his teeth. That would be past tense, right? Present tense. Jack gets out of bed and brushes his teeth. And then future tense, Jack will get out of bed and then he will brush his teeth, right? Not many stories told in future tense. I would say most of them are past, but there's still a number also told in present. I like to write in past tense. If you read a story in future tense, that's most likely kind of experimental, usually not a novel. Usually that will be, just a short story that someone's playing around with. Okay, here's a random image. Someone photoshopped, it looks like a pug's head onto that chimpanzee body. So I don't know. I thought it was kind of funny. I've said this before. When I find images to put between sections, I will type random image and then they'll show me a bunch of images and I'll pick one. So that's how I pick these images that go in here. Okay, guys, because I'm dividing this into 3 parts, I think I'm going to stop part A here right now. Thank you so much. And at some point in time, there'll be part B and part C. Thanks, guys. Hope you have a good one. Hope I see you next time. Bye-bye.